The following information is based on an extrapolation of historical fact involving Malar's actions on Toril in the early years, but the rest of it is basically homebrew, so use it to your heart's content. This concerns Unga, the divine Stump of Malar, a legend of Toril. The planet Toril, over 30,000 years ago, just after the global cataclysm of the Tearfall and between the Age of Thunder and the rise of the dragons, before the dawn of great empires of dwarves, elves and humans. The world of Toril was still in its tumultuous early days, where gods frequently meddled in the affairs of mortals, and the crumbling ruins of the serpent overlords rose from teeming jungles, while the despotic and evil Toadman the Batraki left the world and the mutated monsters behind through hundreds of great stone portals. Through one of the most impressive portals ever built, from one of the 6 distant homeworlds dominated by their kind, a population of tribal grey orcs flooded into the spine of the world mountains on the far northern territory of the continent of Faerun. Grey orcs have the characteristic flattened and wide nostriled snout. They battled hard against a race of bear-like humanoids called the Quaggoth, who eventually retreated to live almost entirely underground from the surface world. In those primordial times, Malar, the Beast Lord, noticed this new power emerging in the spine of the world mountains, dominating his favoured Quaggoths, among others who worshipped him. The Grey Orcs, pouring through the Great Gate and unable to return, were growing in numbers and strength, and they had also discovered a unique type of fungus in the caverns of the Quaggoth that provided extraordinary nourishment. They still eat a diet heavy with ripplebark fungus to this day, but orcs are a people who love to hunt game and eat primarily fresh meat. Sensing an opportunity, Malar sought to bring these beings under his dominion, envisioning them as the perfect intelligent predators to steal away from their own gods. But Gruumsh, the one-eyed god of the orcs, was not to be outdone. He descended upon Toril, filled with fury at Malar's audacity. A colossal battle ensued between the two deities, shaking the very foundations of the world. Mountains crumbled, seas boiled, and skies darkened as the gods clashed in a contest of strength and will. Gruumsh had not killed any other gods in quite some time, but he was close to putting an end to Malar then and there, having severely wounded Malar and cutting off any means of his escape. He had forced Malar to direct so much of his divine essence into this manifestation on Toril. Whatever would be left to crawl back to the outer planes to regenerate would be trivial for Gruumsh to hunt down and execute. Malar may be a god of beasts, but he is no fool. He knew running from Gruumsh was futile, so he brought every bit of power he had and manifested it on Toril. The wildlife across the entire planet was supercharged like you would hardly imagine. Animals were slaughtering each other for sport, and the aggression in every conflict was inflated to a state of rage. Not too far away from this battle, the dragons snapped. Their intolerance of the empire of the birdfolk, the Aeri, reached a boiling point, and a huge number of red dragons took flight as one force, determined to burn the Aeri civilization to the ground. Which they did. Gruumsh welcomed this aggression and new phase of the battle, but he is a very powerful god with few things to really challenge him, so his might unmatched, he struck a blow so powerful that it sent Malar like a missile across the sky, clipping the peak off a mountain and crashing into a vast forest, which later came to be known as the Lurkwood. Dazed but not defeated, Malar, in his ingenuity, grasped a nearby tree stump torn asunder from their godly struggle. Pouring his divine essence and savage power into the wood, Malar transformed the broken tree into a weapon of terrible power. Seeing a mighty grey orc nearby, a warrior of notable stature and ferocity, who was nonetheless fleeing with his tribe for his very life as any sane mortal would, Malar halted him and thrust the weapon into his hands, uttering a single command in the grey orc dialect, Unga, which means, hit it. In this case, he was pointing right at the injured right knee of Gruumsh as the orc god descended from the sky towards them at the end of a prodigious leap. Empowered by this divine artifact, the orc warrior became a force of nature. Gruumsh was not expecting Malar to turn one of his own orcs against him, and a blow from the weapon cracked into his knee, splitting his kneecap with a thunderous echo bouncing off the mountainsides. followed by the outraged roar of the Orc god, who obliterated the Orc warrior, of course, whatever his name was. But the damage was done. Gruumsh was slowed down considerably, and Malar, again not an idiot, jumped through the nearest available portal he could find and got the hell out of there while he could. It would take eons for Malar to regain what he had lost in that battle, and he failed to gain the worship of the Orcs, who then, as now, always respect strength and honour above all else. The Orcs worship Gruumsh, the victorious, the first power of the Orcs, and had ever since been known as he who never sleeps, as he always keeps a watchful eye on his followers, lest they ever stray like that again. Oh, Magublayet would love to have the Orcs just as he stole away the goblins, but he would not dare try it against Gruumsh. As eons passed and the world changed, the battle faded into legend, but the weapon named Unga, a symbol of the ancient clash of gods, Malar's ambition, and the indomitable spirit of the Grey Orcs, still waits to be wielded by those deemed worthy of its devastating power. All that is known is that somewhere in the great spine of the world mountains, a weapon of unreasonable power is just resting in some crag or crevice, indestructible, frozen in some glacial ice maybe, dropped and lost in some great fight between the Orc tribes. Anyone could stumble across it, or maybe nobody will. Only Gruumsh knows, and he's not telling. Unga, the divine Stump of Malar, is an artifact weapon, a Greatclub. It requires attunement by a creature to wield a Greatclub. This Greatclub, appearing as a blood-stained tree stump, tightly corded with flax, once belonged to the god Malar himself. Wielding this artifact, you can feel the raw power of the Beast Lord coursing through you. As a +3 Greatclub, when attuned, it deals 2d8 +3 bludgeoning damage on a hit, plus the wielder's strength modifier. It deals an extra 2d6 damage to orcs and giants. It is classed as a siege weapon, dealing double damage to inanimate objects and structures. A great warrior can, as a ritual lasting 10 minutes, cut their hands and grip Unga, merging their blood with Malar's essence. Upon completion, the orc transforms, grows in size, gaining the following benefits permanently. Their size becomes large. They gain a +2 to strength and constitution, exceeding the normal 20-point maximum if necessary. They gain the ability to enter a berserk rage once per long rest, similar to a barbarian's rage feature, but lasts for 1 minute. While in this rage, they gain resistance to all damage except psychic, and deal an extra d6 damage with melee weapon attacks of any kind. This ritual can only be done once by any orc, but the changes are irreversible. As an action, they can slam Unga into the ground. All creatures within 15 feet must make a DC 17 strength saving throw or be knocked prone. Undead creatures within that range also take 3d8 radiant damage and must make a wisdom saving throw or be turned as if affected by a turn undead feature of a 10th level cleric. Once per long rest, they can yell a command as a bonus action, compelling all beasts of large size or bigger within 30 feet to follow their command. The beast must make a wisdom saving throw, DC 17, or be compelled for 1 minute. On a critical hit made on a living target, the wielder drains some of their life force, gaining temporary hit points equal to half the damage dealt. Unga can only be destroyed if Gruumsh and Malar both will it to be so, combining their divine powers to unmake it. Considering that the two gods hate each other's guts to this day, that's highly unlikely to happen. My name's AJ Pickett. I hope you enjoyed this short little video of an artifact just made up on the spot. This comes to us thanks to a discussion on a D&D group on Facebook. It just inspired me to make this for you. Have a great day, and I'll be back with more for you, as always, very soon.